I hope everybody's doing okay. I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded for the last couple of days. Um, uh, I've been feeling really bad spiritually, mentally, and physically. I know the enemy has been trying to strike me down, but praise be to Yahweh that I'm making another recovery with this endless battle that is my health. Oh, sorry, kitty. So I want to pivot to another subject. Last time I went back to the occult and psychiatry, and then before that I touched on the anti-Christian element that is philosophy. Um, Now I'm gonna jump around to another topic this time, and this is the occult nature of baseball, but the person specifically that I will be reviewing today is a man named Alexander Cartwright, who is credited for the modern day rules and regulations of baseball. Sorry, just a second. My cat knocked something over. And before I get started, I want to make it clear that it's not some grave sin to go out and play baseball. It's not. It's certainly not a sin just to play catch with a baseball and glove. A lot of people probably one of their best memories with their father would be just playing catch outside with the baseball. Now, to answer the question, when does it get occultic? I would say I would say once you get to college, because that's when you typically join a fraternity or a sorority, and they're all steeped in masonry. But let's get to this Alexander Cartwright character. While there is someone else that had their hand in making baseball, he created the rules. He drew the diamond, and he is the one that is typically credited for it. Um, and something that I've never heard anyone point out. Well, I never really heard anyone make a specific video about this. To be honest with you, you'll see on the symbol on Alexander Cartwright's tombstone, it has wheat on it, and to most people that doesn't mean anything. But Alexander Cartwright is is a confirmed Freemason. It's not a rumor. You can even look it up. It'll tell you what lodge he was in, and you can probably find a certificate on there as well. Now, the wheat represents fertility because, like I've made clear many times, they worship the phallus because they believe the genitalia is magical and based pretty much a part of the occult. And it gets very deep with that, but that's not the purpose of this video. And there's a very, very, very old book, um, at least at least 100 years ago, maybe close to 150, called a Brotherhood of the Diamond, Brothers of the Diamond, and it's a pretty much a handbook of the rules of baseball, but it has this Masonic square and compass in it. So it was a book that was made for the Masons at that time. And also I want to point out that he did play baseball as well. Um, in 1892, he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. He played for the Knickerbacks. Because this was before they had all these established teams. And and the baseball field, the infield is shaped exactly like the square and compass. I'll put the image right up there. And not many people know this, but they think that masonry ends at 33 degrees, but it does not. Once you get into non-American masonry and you get into the rite of Memphis Mithraism, it does go all the way up to 360. Very few people are aware of that, and nobody will believe you when you say it. Also, it's very clear that somehow Alexander Cartwright was most likely born into the Masons because his first job in 1936 was at Wall Street. And that's what strikes suspicion when anybody's first job is something like that. Then he also worked at the Union Bank of New York. Now we're going to get into the numerology, and this is when it starts being very clear of the occultic background of baseball. So the baseball bat is 33 inches and it's 33 ounces. And for anyone that studied this stuff, 33 is the favorite number in masonry. For Scottish Rite Masonry, 33 is the highest you can go as the Grand Sovereign Inspector General. And if you notice the number system in baseball, you'll notice something very consistent. And see, for regular people, numbers don't really mean much. Like for us, if we see a bunch of fours here, fives here, and see the numbers consistently align with that, the regular person doesn't think anything of it. They feel like it's just a coincidence. But to these people, numbers is unimaginably important, specifically for Freemasonry. The other societies and the cults, not so much, or as much. You'll always see the numbers there, but Freemasonry, I would say, obsesses over the numbers more than the rest of them. Now, like I said, 33 inches and 33 ounces are the bats, and and in a baseball, everything is based off of based in threes. Now, if you don't want to just take my word for it, that's fine. Because there's a video on YouTube, I believe it was posted a few years ago, of a Freemason in the library of the lodge, having sort of like a press conference talking about the Masonic roots of baseball. Um, I'll put it up there on the screen so you all can see, so you all can watch it for yourself if you want. It's very eye opening. So you see 3 strikes, 3 outs. The 9 innings, you get 369. 27 outs altogether. And obviously you get that by adding up threes. So why all threes? Well, that's because, well, in most Christianity circles, they believe in the Holy Trinity. I don't believe in the Holy Trinity. I believe in Jesus Christ being the manifestation of God, and in Him and His Holy Spirit living through His believers. So I don't believe in the three in one. I believe that Jesus is all three. I believe that Jesus Christ is our God and our Creator. But I've done complete videos about the Trinity. I don't want to harp on that right now. But in the higher levels of Masonry, their Trinity is Semiramis, Nimrod, and Tammuz, because Nimrod was the first rebel in the Bible, and he was responsible for creating Babylon and making the Tower of Babel. His wife Semiramis was the first person who started the occult religion of witchcraft. And then, after Nimrod got killed, she claimed to have an immaculate conception, which is how Jesus was born. But obviously, this was a lie, and she claimed that her son Tammuz was the reincarnation of Nimrod. So basically, they pervert the virgin birth, and the Bible does not say that about Tammuz. It talks about Tammuz as a false demonic god in the book of Ezekiel, and the rest is just made up tradition. But it's important to know what these people believe, rather it be fake or not. But Tammuz, Nimrod, and Semiramis are all absolute pagan, demonic, false gods. So that's why everything is in threes. Now, a baseball player named Albert Spalding. He started a sports goods store when he was still in the Major League of Baseball, and while he was an active Freemason, and it was called Spalding Sporting Goods. Like I said, this was a Mason that owned a sports shop, and he started making his own brand of baseballs, and those are still the exact same baseballs used in the MLB today. They still use Spalding balls, which was made by a Mason. So you see here that the evidence is starting to stack up a little bit. Now, also, I know that a lot of Christians don't really know about this kind of stuff, and we should be very careful about how much occult knowledge we do learn about. We have to make sure that if we do decide to learn about it, we're doing it for the right reasons, because some people can get very in, um, entranced by this stuff, then slowly start to lose their path on walking righteous with God. But for people like me that learn this stuff to bring it to light, if you know anything about the Kabbalah, you're very familiar with the tree of life, and then that there's 10 spheres on the tree of life. And when you compare it, and there's three what they call pillars in the tree of life. And when you compare that with the baseball field, you have 10 people on the field, just like there's 10 spheres on the tree of life. Now, just like um, you have you have 10 players on that field. You have the three people in the outfield. You have the three in the infield, or or four. I don't know. I'm not familiar exactly with the positions completely. Then you have the catcher, the pitcher, and the batter, and it does add up to 10. I'll put the picture right up there. Because high level Freemasonry is obsessed with the Kabbalah and Tree of Life. Now let's talk about the name. So the to us we it's baseball, as in as in BASEBALL, but to the mystery schools and the occult, they don't look at things the same way. They view it as base Baal, as in the demonic false god in the Old Testament, and spoken of in the New Testament as well. So they view baseball as BASEBAAL. Same thing with football, or or basketball. Basketball will get its own thing, but that was started by somebody that was in Skull and Bones and a 33rd degree Freemason. But in the highest higher levels of Freemasonry or the other cults, they do refer to sports in that nature, and they name sports with the ball at the end, so they can do a play on words, because they love these word games. And also, if you're an avid baseball watcher, which I'm not, I saw this through clips. Um, Sometimes you'll see players warming up in the back of the dugout, and they'll be laying down. It's kind of hard to explain exactly how they're doing it, but they're laying flat on their back with their arms to the side of them. And the reason they're doing that is because it mimics the Freemasonic death and rebirth ritual, which I believe it's done in the third degree. I want to say it might be a different one, but I believe it's the third. But yeah, also, it, the area where the pitcher um uh, is standing in, it originally was a little bit bigger, but it was changed into a 6 foot square, because they're also into the number six for obvious reasons. And I believe this was one of the few things that was changed from what Alexander Cartwright originally had. And and keep in mind that even though I'm talking more about baseball than Alexander Cartwright, this video is about him, and it's another way to understand how these people think. And some people might be thinking, why is he making a video about baseball or sports when there's all these other occultic people to expose? And I'll tell you why. Because baseball, well, any sport in general, is considered to these fanatics. They won't admit it, but it is their religion. You have people that can memorize every single statistic, every single batting average. Um, I don't know all the terms, but they'll know how many games someone lost every year, won every year. But they will know almost no Bible verse, know nothing about the Lord, know nothing about their Savior Jesus Christ, but they'll know um all about the sports statistics. And also the pitching distance is typically 60.6, and I find that to be very, very, very odd and too much of a coincidence when we already have this much evidence stacked against it. And in the Hall of Fame, and this information is a few years old. There was 58 people in the Hall of Fame that was Freemasons, and I imagine the number is probably a little bit higher now. And also, the reason that it's important to cover sports is because sports, all the sports, baseball, soccer, football, basketball, hockey, all of them are the continuation of the Colosseum fighters for Rome, because America is just the continuation of the Roman Empire. Go to Washington D. If somebody drugged you, blindfolded you, and let you out in the middle of Washington D.C., and if you did not know that city existed, you would not think you was in America. You would think you was in some type of Roman or Greek country town. You would not think you was in America. And the sports thing goes back to the bread and circus. Give them bread and circus, and they would never rebel or question anything. This was an ancient, I would say, a mind control tactic that was used. If you give them, basically, it means if you give the people entertainment, they will never question anything around them. That is the agenda of sports, and it's also a way to get you to indulge in the occult. And also, I want to point out it that it got a lot of people on steroids, and while I'm not anti-drug, I will say that it is overblown about how a lot of the drugs are more dangerous. They overhype them to be more dangerous than they actually are. Other than a few, I know some are very dangerous, and we should, if we can, we should stay away from any of them. But most of them are not as dangerous as people think. It's overhyped by the government for specific reasons that I'll get into on a later date. But sports, really made a high rise of steroids, which players would use, and then it go exercise to get a buffed up from them, and then they would develop heart conditions. So that's one of the ones that I am highly against is steroids. Nothing good can come out of the taking them um, uh, to get better at sports. And see, it's an ego thing because all these sports are secretly rigged. That's something to be talked about another day, but I can assure you that they're all rigged. But it becomes an ego thing to where the player just wants to perform as well as they can because it lifts up the ego every single time. And eventually I will go back to sports and talk about it again. This was pretty much just an area that I have not touched on yet. And I thought it was important just to make all these connections. There's too many to be ignored. And I think you can make your own decision about what you think. But that's about 10 to 15 facts that I laid down to it, and of course, some of these things it's possible for it to be a coincidence, but you can absolutely prove that baseball has its roots in masonry. That's something that can't even be rebutted. I understand that some people could try to argue about the Kabbalah thing, while I believe, and most people that studied the Kabbalah knows how obsessed people get with the tree of life, but not even counting that, or not even counting the Tammuz, Nimrod, and Semiramis thing, there's still plenty of proof that baseball is indeed a Masonic sport. And take this information and hopefully spread it. And I also want to take the time to thank God that lately my last couple of videos have actually reached a decent number, and I do take requests. So if there's something that you feel like needs to be brought to the light, please comment it, and I most likely will provide the video. Have a blessed rest of the day.